My father's voice was trembling when he finally said it. Celine, I am so sorry. I should have protected you. Those words, the ones I had waited my whole life to hear, came only after he'd watched his best friend, Alistair Godfrey, nearly lunge at me in front of our entire family. There were smashed plates on the ground, the smell of burnt meat still hanging in the air, and every single guest frozen in disbelief. Alistair, drunk and sneering, had just called me a psycho bitch for daring to speak the truth about him, truths he'd spent decades hiding behind charm and lies. My father had always laughed off his jabs, defended him, chosen him over me every single time. But that night, in the backyard, under the string lights, my father stepped between us. He told Alistair to leave. Not as a joke, not as a plea, but as an order. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in Alistair's eyes. What my father didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for weeks, and once Alistair was gone, I was finally ready to finish what I'd started. It began at Rosalind Ashbury's birthday party. Alistair leaned in, smirking, and asked if I'd ever considered giving my 6-month-old son up for adoption because, in his words, some people just aren't cut out for motherhood. I'd endured years of this. At 18, he'd mocked my studies, calling me a naive little girl who thinks she can fix the world. At family gatherings, he'd tear me down my clothes, my books, even my volleyball past, and my father, Benedict Faulkner, would either laugh along or look away. The last time I saw Alistair before this year, he physically shoved me away from the grill at my father's barbecue, declaring that only a real man knew how to cook. I avoided him for 6 years. But my father invited him back into our lives. And that night at Rosalind's party, when Alistair targeted my son, something inside me snapped. I called him out his custody battle, his affairs, his financial mess. I watched his mask crack. My father didn't hear a word of it. Later, he texted me, asking why I was so mad over a sandwich. That was when I realized I couldn't count on him to see the truth. I decided to fight differently, quietly. I began digging old lawsuits, employee complaints, debts, every piece of Alistair's history he thought was buried. I built a file so thick it could drown him, but I didn't release it. Not yet. Weeks later, Benedict invited me to another family gathering. I refused to come if Alistair would be there. He swore he wouldn't. But when I walked into the backyard, I saw him holding court, beer in hand, laughing loud enough to drown the music. Something in me went ice cold. I knew exactly what I was going to do. By the end of the night, after a few too many drinks, Alistair crossed the line again this time, with a shove that made the entire table of guests go silent. My father froze, the way he always had. I stood up. My voice didn't shake. I told Alistair exactly who he was, exactly what I knew. His smirk faltered, his face drained of color. And then, my father finally moved. But what happened next, the way the balance of power shifted forever, wasn't something I could have planned. This is where everything turned. Watch the full video to see how I took it all back.